Welcome to our master class today with Ciara Boggess. Let me tell you, everybody knows who she is, but I just love some of her credits so much, so I'm going to share some of them with you. She has created Broadway roles, iconic Broadway roles. Yes, there's Ariel and Little Mermaid, but she's created roles in Should Have Been You and School of Rock. She is an Olivier nominee for her work in creating a new Christine in the sequel, Love Never Dies. She is Andrew Lloyd Webber's on the record, and he's a hard man to please, absolutely favorite Christine. She works on Broadway. She works on the West End. She does concerts internationally. But here's the cool thing. She also periodically shows up in regional theaters. And I got the huge gift of artistic collaboration with her a few years back. And so we're going to talk. We're going to chat a little bit. I'm going to turn it over to her to chat a little bit, and then we'll have time for Q&A. And I'll tell you how that works a little bit later, but let's get to the good stuff. Please welcome Ciara Boggess.
Hi.
There she is.
That's how we do an entrance nowadays.
I like it. I like it. It was smooth. It was right on time. It was right in the light. It's really, really nice.
Thank you.
So I was looking at one of the many versions of your bio, and I think I want to start by asking you if you would do a brief recitation of your 2 lines from your professional debut in the national tour of Les Mis. Go.
And in a bed. That was my line in the first act.
Uh-huh.
My line in the second act was, nothing ever will. Thank you.
Electric.
Thank you. Yeah.
Truly electric.
Thank you.
So I have all kinds of questions, but one that I've been thinking a lot about, I remember hearing about this story and thinking how resonant it is for where we are right now. Will you tell the story of being in Paris in 2016, working on a French language version of Phantom?
Yeah, so I had been doing a show on Broadway called School of Rock for Andrew, and I was about 9 months into that run, and he sent one of his people, he has many, into my dressing room at intermission of a Broadway show. This is how, always thinking of the next thing, and asked, Ciara, so Andrew is going to do an all-French, the very first all-French production of Phantom of the Opera, and done in Paris for the very first time to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the show. Would you do it? And I said, I don't speak French.
Problem.
Is that a problem?
Uh-huh.
And he was like, well, like, the thing is, it was already decided. Andrew decided I was going to do it. So it's like, you can say that you don't speak French, but you're still going to do it. And I was like, but also I will say, I was like, yes. Also, everything radiated within me that was like, yep, yes, I will. And I don't speak French. So I worked then for 2 or 3 months while I was still doing School of Rock. And I started learning the show in French. And it had never been translated before in this way. It had a silly translation for the movie. Right. But this was like, and it was exquisite, this translation, I will say. And so I start working on it, and I start working much like this, actually, with a woman named Odile. She's a linguistics expert in France, and she started working with me to get me to speak exactly, I mean, my accent is like ridiculous for Phantom. Like I know what I'm singing about, like not only did I learn it, but I know exactly what the translation, like it was incredible. And anyway, so I worked on that for 3 months, and I moved to Paris, and we start working on the show, and I'm the only American, everybody, and I'm there, and we're there for a month working on this. And then we get into the theater and we start teching the show, and 3 days into, 2 days into tech rehearsal, the stage catches on fire, goes en flambe, and it's gone. It's done. The show is canceled because the theater is literally on fire. And much like this virus, you can't argue with the fire. You can't be like, we'll work around it, which even with this virus, we tried to do that at first. It's like, we'll work around it, just 10 people together, just 50, you can't. It's done. The thing is done, just like the fire. You can't dance around the hole in the center of the stage.
Yeah.
And so in a very European way, we all went and had many glasses of wine. And it was devastating. And I was devastated, but I was mostly, and I mean this, devastated for my company, because here were all these French people that don't have opportunity. It's not over there. There's 2 theaters,
Right.
There's 2 big theaters, and one of them is gone now. And whereas you can come back and there's opportunities everywhere. So they were distraught. And what broke me was there was one girl that was a ballerina that had been cast from Japan. And so she had left. She was a waitress and one of the most beautiful ballerinas you ever seen, but you can't make a living really, that's a living wage. So she was also a waitress, and she had left, come over, and this was going to be the biggest thing of her career.
Right. And
she couldn't stop crying. And I don't know, but I suddenly was like, all right, you guys, here we go. We're going to the opera house. We ran to the steps of the Paris Opera House. And I'm telling you, we were 2 blocks from it where we were all gathered. We ran to the steps of the Paris Opera House, slightly tipsy. And we got onto this. We put all our stuff down and we went onto the steps of the Paris Opera House, which is where the show takes place. And we started to dance the show. We started doing all the stuff from the beginning. We did Masquerade. We did Phantom of the Opera. We did Hannibal, the number that opens actually the whole show. We did everything, and the dancers were dancing, and it was the most, and people were filming. And then in true Parisian fashion, there was our music director happened to have his accordion with him.
Perfect.
So it was the most Parisian moment. And that's how we felt better. And it didn't fix anything, but it sure did feel better at that moment. And we still had hope that it could go on, but of course it didn't. But that's the story of what happened. And it is very similar, not even to this scale, obviously, but it's very similar to the feeling of what's happening now, which is you're done. You got to go. You go home. Ciara, you're done in Paris. Thank you very much. You may go, Yeah. And there's nothing you can do.
So there's a through line of your story about letting go, letting the universe tell you. One of my favorites is, let me get the year right, 2007, while in Shavasana at the end of a yoga class.
Yeah.
You made the decision. You had how many auditions in were you for the role of Ariel?
1. I had 1 audition, and I'd never heard again. I had no callback.
And some time had passed.
Many, many months had passed. I got 1 more call asking me, can she come back in to audition for the understudy and do an ensemble call? And I said no. Right.
And you were in Las Vegas
doing Phantom.
So the story goes, and you'll tell us if it's true, is you're at the end of the class, you're in Shavasana, and you ask for release, right? To give it away. And then what happened?
And then I left and I went out to my car. I mean, I literally was just released, and that was it. Nothing, no attachments to anything. And I went out to my car and I had a voicemail from my then agent saying, they need you to immediately fly to New York in 3 days for a final callback for Little Mermaid. And I was like, what? By the way, I had fired this agent. I mean, I was so done. I was so I'm good. This wasn't even my agent anymore, but this was the agent that was through that. It was so crazy. And then that was it. Meanwhile, in the company, one of the girls in the company had just told us the night before that her friend, her best friend, had been cast as Ariel. She had booked it.
Oh.
And so I was really under the assumption that it was a done deal. So I called my agent back and I said, I was just told that it was cast and it was this girl. I gave the name. The agent was like, hold on, let me, because I was, I had to pay something like $700 in order to fly myself to New York last minute from Vegas,
Yeah.
you know? And I was like, is it worth it? Like, are you sure? And also, what? And the casting director said, it is not cast. So whoever this girl was jumped the gun. And so then I did. I went to New York in 3 days, and I did the callback with 5 other girls.
It seems to have worked out rather well.
It worked out.
So here's what I find interesting. So there's a notion, if people don't know about your light work and your light lessons, do yourself, I'm looking at a list of participants, do yourself a big fat favor, go to Ciara's website and find out about it. But part of your MO in the world is as this incredibly affirming person who gives the gift of being seen to everyone you work with, has a kind of gentleness with the universe. And yet, I like the part of that story where you said, no, I'd fired this agent. What I find fascinating is in that kind of calm and acceptance is someone who works harder than anyone I've ever witnessed in my life. You allow the universe, you work your ass off. I'm not supposed to say that in Zoom recordings. Oh, well.
But it's helpful because you know that I also want to say so many swear words all the time. But yes.
But I want you to talk a little bit about that balance, because I think sometimes we can fool ourselves that giving over and saying what will be is a place of rest.
Yeah, and passiveness.
But with you, it's not at all.
No. That is exactly, I've been teaching a lot of master classes online, not like this, like with students that are, and then they sing and stuff. And I always say, because they want what's the thing? And I say, it's the work that you put in. And you can see some people writing that down and some people like, oh, whatever, like, screw this then.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know why I've always had a really strong work ethic. I do know why. I grew up, first of all, competitive ice skating. I never wanted to do this for a living. I was a competitive ice skater. I wanted to do that more than anything in the world, but it was such an expensive sport and we didn't have any money, so I had to stop. And then I fell into acting. But also I grew up studying an instrument. I still play flute. And that was actually the scholarship I got for college wasn't for musical theater, even though that's what I majored in. It was for flute. And I was in competitions each weekend for that. So there's a competitive spirit, but I always say that this business isn't a competition. So it isn't that if you win, that you don't win something, but I think that the competition stuff was where my work ethic came from.
Right.
And I wasn't also a winner, by the way. I didn't win. I never won a single competition as a skater. The highest I got was second place. But I loved the work. I loved working with my coach, and I also loved approval. I did really well. My mother was a teacher. My grandmother was a teacher. Both of my sisters are teachers, but also, and I am a teacher as well. So I think also the best teachers are the best students. And I needed approval. And, as actors, we need approval. You know that as a director too, you deal with like so many fragile egos of like, you have to give approval and then you can be like, can you fix this? 'Cause you suck, Susan V. Booth, by the way, never says that. But no, when I give over something to the universe, it's with the like agreement that's like, I'm still going to do the work. It's not like, well, whatever will be, and then just like, don't do anything. Like, for example, just now, I knew that I had to be on this call, but I'm taking ballet class every day online. And I have to, because I need to keep up with what I'm doing. There is no place to perform, but the work is still within me. And in my biggest disappointments in my career and my life, the thing that gets me out of the hole of the depression is the work. It's the only thing that I turn to. That isn't like, it's not the time to turn to any vice that you may have. It's the time to get back into the work. And what's interesting about this time for me also is I didn't want to sing. Once this happened, I did take class. I was working out, but I sure didn't want to sing. And it took me about 2 weeks to want to do that. And I think the reason is it helps me feel better when I sing, and I wasn't ready. I needed to be one with like what was going on. Isn't that weird?
Grieving?
Yes, it's almost like I needed to be in the grief of it so that I'm not being Pollyanna and pretending like everything is fine. It's like singing for everyone. Then it's like that. And it's like sick. It makes me sick.
Yeah, no, I get that. There was something else that I observed I was watching it, and I pulled aside one of our other collaborators who had worked with you a couple times before, and that was Joanne Hunter.
Oh.
And I said, so I'm seeing something. Is this just weird on this project, or is this who this person is? And it was the fact that you were by billing, by structure, by the way the piece was created, you were our leading lady, and you were the one who, in those nanoseconds that you weren't on stage, you were running scenes with your scene partner. You were working on choreography that you'd already mastered, but you wanted to have it blind, right? You were working, and you were supporting everyone around you like an ensemble member would. So where's that balance come from? Because Joanne tells me that that's just your thing. That's just who you are.
It's funny because I've thought about this a lot, especially Joanne Hunter is one of my favorite humans. And she worked with me in my very first professional show out of college. So she really has seen me from the beginning. And within that show actually is when I learned how to what kind of leading lady I didn't want to be. And because I noticed things that were happening within this particular show, and I didn't know I wasn't really ever thinking even in my head that I'm going to be a leading lady. It wasn't even a thing. And I watched cliques form, and I watched there be like a lot of competition, and it was not pleasant, and I saw where it came from. And I do think, unfortunately, is a woman and man thing, because you can have a really toxic leading man, but usually the leading lady will pick up the slack. And I think it's just something in us as females, it's like within our DNA to help and fix and like be there. But then there's others that are not. But so I don't think I knew, it wasn't a conscious choice on my part. I think it was just, I always felt like it was more fun to do this with everybody. And I have worked with some of the most incredible leading ladies of our time. One of them being Tyne Daly.
Yeah.
And I've worked with her twice. And the first time was in Masterclass on Broadway. And she played Maria Callas, obviously. And I have never met a more generous leading lady in my life. And she's the one who articulated so many things for me that I will never forget. And one of the things is, of course, as soon as you say that I'll never forget, you're like,
what did she say?
She said, this business, theater, is a team sport. And I was like, that's it. That's done. Like, if I'm going to get a tattoo, it's going to be that. It's like, that will never change for me ever. And Tyne would come to and talk about somebody who has to carry a play. I mean, that play it's all on her. And she would get ready and for those that don't know, half hour is our call. We have to be there legally half hour before a show. So she would get there an hour before so that she's ready. She's in her wig. She's in her makeup by half hour. She's in her costume by half hour. And then that's 30 minutes before the show. Then she spends 15 minutes going to everyone's dressing room and doing this with you, even just for a second, even just, how you doing? She would come to our dressing room, and we would, because we were doing that show, we would talk about which leading ladies who've come before us are we using today. Like, she'd be like, who you using today, honey? And when I say using, I mean who we would endow, like, and bring on stage with us in our minds that are like, that's brave and that have done this before, so that it even more feels like a team. And I would say, like, I don't know, Lucille Ball. And she's like, all right, I'm using Katharine Hepburn. See you out there, kid. Out. And then she would go for 15, and then 15 until show. She's sitting backstage and she's in her prep. And I was like, oh, that is it. Like, there is no tolerance for acting like an idiot backstage or talking or anything. And also just the respect for the work. And I'm still not willing to be ready by half hour, but I always get there early. But those are the types of things that I think a true leading lady does. And that's the stuff that I want to carry into everything. And that's the truth, is, especially with a show like what we did with Ever After. Yes, we're there to see the story of what my character is up to, but I can't do what I do if I know that the rest of the company isn't also doing what they do. It's right. First of all, not as fun. And second of all, it sure feels lonely. And it's like, also, what's the point? And I've been even thinking about this even more now with what's going on in our world. We are craving connection, and that's introverts and extroverts. It's like we are craving, but real connection. And that's what we're doing in the theater. And that's what I have to say.
So you have a thread in your practice, your artistic practice, which is yoga, which is mindfulness. Was there a chicken and an egg, or did they just bump into each other?
Yoga came first, and I started doing it on tour, actually, with Les Mis in 2006. I took actually a Bikram class, which now is like so sad if anybody watched the documentary of what an awful man he is. But the yoga is not his yoga. It's the guru's yoga. So it's still, the yoga is still, everything is healing, because it changed my life. And why it changed my life, Bikram, for those that don't know, is the yoga that's done in 103 degrees and about 85% humidity. It's 90 minutes, and it's the exact same 26 postures each class. So a lot of people hate it because they get bored, which I can do a whole thing about boredom. I think boredom's a choice. They get bored because they know what's coming next. It's like, what's the point of doing this, and why does it need to be this? I loved it because you think you're going to die, and then you don't. And I don't know, I just thrive in environments like what we do for a living. Every opening night, don't you think you're going to die? Like, it's like so major, and then you don't. And it's the ultimate high. I've also never understood why artists take drugs, because we literally, it's like we get the ultimate highs and the ultimate lows, just like you would if you took some drugs. So I'd never understand. It's like, why put a hat on a hat? Just go do an opening night, and you'll feel like you've taken something that makes you high, you know? So anyway, what was I talking about? I don't even remember.
So you started doing Bikram when you were on tour.
Yes. And so that's what changed my mindset to help me really focus, because in order to survive a class like that, you cannot be worried about what anyone else is thinking about you. You can only focus, and that in Bikram, you stare at yourself in the mirror, in your own eyes. And if you don't, you will fall out of postures. It's like all this stuff that mentally, so yoga came first, and I did Bikram for 10 years. And then I switched and started doing vinyasa and stuff. But mindfulness came much later. I didn't discover people like Wayne Dyer until I was in Little Mermaid. I wasn't raised to think like that. Brene Brown is one of my favorite people ever. And
I just finished Dare to Lead.
Oh, of course you did. Yes.
What are your values? What are your, she has that ridiculous list and she says you can only have a couple.
I know. Oh, I actually have them like circled. What was one of my, integrity is one of my main values. And I want to leave it at, what are yours? Or what's your one?
I tried to get it down to one, but I think I like service and curiosity. I like the way they bump up against each other. So what got you on the mindfulness? Was it Wayne Dyer and then?
Yeah. The way that the first book one of my friends gave me when I was doing Little Mermaid was called The Power of Intention. And it was different than the book that had been previous to that I don't know who wrote it, but it was The Secret that everybody was going crazy over. And I was hearing about this book and I didn't enjoy what I was hearing. And I was like, what? So all you got to do is so what it's telling people is if you secret it, it'll happen. So, that's like, if I tell the universe I want a bike or a car, like, then it will happen, and I don't know. It just felt very, like materialistic and like, yeah, you're telling the universe or whoever's in charge what it is that you want, and then you get it. And I thought that just felt off to me. But power of intention, the difference between intention and secreting is the idea of intention and intending for something and being present with, is that you already are it. You're not asking for, give me this, it's even when we pray, it's not, please give me this. It's, please help me remember, that I'm this. One of my favorite prayer ideas is that actually another mindfulness person named Gabrielle Bernstein, and she wrote Spirit Junkie, talks about, is one of the prayers to just ask is, help me reinterpret this. And I love that. It's so simple, like that little stuff that's like, help me reinterpret this, because my earthly self, my ego self is telling me that this is what's up and this is what I need. Just help me reinterpret it and then walk away. Like that's, to me, is like putting your order in and then just see what happens. So
there was I think she was a high school teacher of yours who
Yes.
wrote a message to you on a Post-it. Was that the You Are Enough?
Oh, so I thought you were talking about my high school drama teacher, who is also, I think, one of the main reasons, by the way, that I think of this like a team effort. And I just didn't know the words until Tyne Daly. But my high school drama teacher was the one that if you didn't get cast in the show, and by the way, I went to an inner city public high school. This was like, we had no money whatsoever, but she put on 4 shows a year. And we, the students, if you weren't cast as the actors, you sure were signing up for behind the scenes. So I had to do things that I didn't want to do. I wanted to be the star of the thing. No, you were not this one. This one, you're going to do the makeup for the people, or the sound, or the lights, or whatever. And from that, it's like, oh, it's a team. And this is like, so I want to say that. But I had a teacher I took a random master class from in Colorado when I was 17, named Mary Satrakian. And I was in her master class, and she was teaching somebody else. And I think he was like singing a song and doing too many musical theater gestures. And she was like, stop. And she said off the cuff, you are enough. You're so enough. It's incredible how enough you are, she said. And I thought that was the funniest thing I'd ever heard, because I never heard words put like that. So I write this down, because I always took notes for myself. And I wrote it down, and that was years and years prior to then when I'm doing Little Mermaid. And it suddenly came back to me because I had still that notebook with me. And I started getting tons of fan mail and people that were needing to talk to me / Ariel, because Ariel in the deep level represents the person who believes that they were born in the wrong body, time, place, family, all this stuff. So I would get letters of like the deepest, like people's darkest, most awful, and they needed to talk to me and thank me or help me. And I came to this place of like, I'm gonna write back something, but I cannot be anybody's psychologist. It's not smart to then write back advice. And somehow it's like the page opens and it's like, oh my God, all they need to know is you are enough. And so I would write back, dear, whatever their name is, you are enough, love, Ciara, and that was it. And now it's become like my war cry. And somehow I've morphed it into, it's unbelievable how enough you are, but the original quote was incredible.
I love that. Now, I want to be, we're going to let folks put their hands up and ask questions. But when did you feel like the mindfulness work and the performance work first just really fed each other?
It's weird that this just re-aired. If anybody just saw the 25th anniversary of Phantom of the Opera that we did at Royal Albert Hall, that marks a major time in my life. It was in 2011, and I had just finished doing masterclass on Broadway. I flew back to do this celebration of 25 years of Phantom. And it was the biggest thing I'd ever done because it was live streamed around the world to cinemas. It was broadcast to cinemas around the world at the same time. I work in the theater. I have never been on a movie before. And the pressure, I was prepared for pressure because of Little Mermaid, but not like this. And if I was not mindful during that performance, it would have been a disaster. And it's like, everything that could go wrong. And we had only teched about one act and a half. We hadn't even finished. It was such a monster thing, and we had 2 weeks to get this ready. And so once that was happening, and I'm fascinated that it was the thing that was filmed, because it's one of the things I'm most proud of in my career too, because when I finished that show, when I come out for my bow, it was the most exhausted, the most exhilarated, and just like, oh, that was it. Like, I did that work. And I didn't think about anything else. It wasn't a performance. It was an existence. I've never said that before, but that is a tweetable Oprah moment right there.
I like that. I like that. So here's what's going to happen. Hello, Zoomzins. You have a little icon where you can put your hand up, and I will see your hand up, and I will call on you. And here's the slightly big brother-ish part of it, is that we have Hershey Milner is on our call as well, and she will unmute you. I know, right? So Hannah Garman, you got your hand up first. Go to town, girl.
Hi, okay, can you hear me?
Hi, Hannah.
Hi. Okay, first of all, Ciara, you're one of my biggest inspirations. I love the light stories you do. My friends and I used to pull them all the time before our show we had. Every show we do that. And so it'd be like our inspiration for the show that night. But my question that I have for you is, which role or show you've done has been the most impactful and challenging for the woman that you are today?
The answer is every single one.
Yeah.
Every single one, and for different reasons. The most recent that I did with Susan was Ever After. And that was not since Little Mermaid have I had as physically challenging a show. And also just as I grow up in my life, it's like each role becomes very much mirrored with like whatever I need in my life at that moment or whatever. So it really just encourages growth on stage and off. So really, I have to say that my answer is all of them for different reasons.
I love that. And also you were phenomenal in Ever After. I saw that. So
Thank you. We loved it.
Thank
So,
you.
Terrence Smith, you're up.
Oh, hi. I had to
Unmute yourself.
oh, did I?
There you go. You're good.
Oh, there it is. Hi, my name's actually Alexandria Joy. Terrence Smith is my fiance, but his Zoom account is on my computer.
Hi, Alexandria.
Hi, Ciara. It's so just amazing to be a part of this, first of all. But I'm really interested about more advice with yoga. I was a competitive gymnast for 13 years and then got into theater through college. But I wanted to know what was the name of the yoga that you, I forgot to write it down, but you said there was a specific type of yoga that you did.
The specific type I started with was Bikram. Unfortunately and fortunately, because of lawsuits against him, because he's like an awful man, it's crazy, you guys. But all the Bikram studios are gone. So they've all changed into something else. So the yoga that I would advocate for right now is any type of vinyasa. So, and I think, so especially as a gymnast, you're going to have already skills that a lot of like beginning yogis won't have. But your challenge is going to be to not just jump right into, oh, I can do this and like all these like crazy things. Because the difference of yoga and any other type of thing is that yoga is literally breath to movement.
Right.
So anything can be actually yoga in my mind. It's like even when you're like washing a dish, like, and you're being mindful or whatever. But so I would look up any vinyasa, and the thing about Bikram that I liked was that it was heated. So you can look up a hot vinyasa.
Like hot yoga? Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yes. So hot yoga.
All right, girl.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So Hanley, you're up.
Hello.
Hello.
Ciara, I'm such a fan. You've been such a source of both inspiration and grounding for me throughout your career thus far. So I find like in moments of loss, I can turn to you for how to ground my feet, but also lift my head. So thanks for that.
Yes, my pleasure.
Yeah. And my question is, I love how you said you think boredom is a choice. I completely agree. And I wonder if you could unpack that a little more, especially in terms of, say, a long run of a particular show, or a long run of no jobs, or the circumstance we currently find ourselves in now.
Yes, ma'am. That is a long run of no jobs for sure. So I say boredom is a choice because I think that if anyone is alive on this planet, there is something to be curious about. So even if you are, so first we'll say if I'm doing my job and I'm doing 8 shows a week and I've been doing it over and over and over again, it is, to me, it's impossible to get bored if I'm every day, especially with the type of roles that I'm doing, there is always something to find. And if you think about it, in life, every day you wake up and you don't wake up the same way that you woke up the day before. Everything is growing and changing all the time. So why would I not use something new today? Why I developed also these light lessons, which quickly is just like 20 different words or phrases in a bag that you can pull one out. And before a show, say, or before a day or before a meeting or anything that's like, oh, I'm going to focus on this. Maybe the words are be brave. And that's what I'm going to focus on in that moment. Now I'm not going to be bored. I also think being bored is so disrespectful too, just on like a judgmental, the Ciara judgment level. So it's like, it's just not, it's not an option for me, Ciara. I don't give myself the option to be bored. When I've gone to a show, even say where it's like, I don't care at all about anything going, like, it's so, I'm like, oh God, this is like it's really hard to find anything. I could be like, I'm so bored. No, I've done this before. It's like, start observing like the lights and like start getting curious about like, what a wonderment of like, it's like just going crazy for a second where you're like, how does this work? Like, imagine with no lights, like all this stuff. That's why boredom's a choice. Does that answer your question? Oh, so then the second half is in life of what we're experiencing right now, boredom is an option. So actually, maybe it's better I say boredom's an option, but know that it's a choice. And so I find it's like suddenly we have this, instead of being like we're bored inside, I'm like, we have an opportunity to look at life different right now. If we are lucky to not be worrying about our health or anybody around us that is unhealthy or in the trenches right now, your whole job is to find a way to show up for your life. That's not boring. That's an opportunity.
Yes, I 1,000% agree. And it was lovely to hear you unpack that. Thank you.
Yes.
So you mentioned that you're taking class every day.
Yep.
Talk to us a little bit about, for a while anyway, we're going to be making art differently.
Yep.
So what do you think about making, and how do you think about making it in this particular moment?
I have the answer. I think because it's all done online now, the way that I'm performing, or any of us are performing, is online. So I think before I put anything out on social media, how may I serve? And that's all we have to ask ourselves. And it's what we do in the theater anyways. I always would do that before a show, especially before a concert. If it's a concert it's a Ciara Boggess in concert, that's my mantra before I go on stage. How may I serve? Instead of what can I get? Because I find I would get very anxious if it's like, what can I get? Or how many people are there in the Raptor and stuff. No, the right people are there. Just like today, the right people are here. The people that are supposed to hear this, that is the part where you give it up. But how may I serve? And then I give it up. So if I don't think that it's worthy of putting out there, or if it's going to better anything, actually a line from our show that came from the stepmother, that's like, don't speak unless you can improve the silence. And it's said it's said as an insult, but there's actually something really, really smart about it. That's like, are you serving? Or if you put it in the positive way, it's like, are you serving the moment, or are you taking? Like, are you just indulging even more with, like, artistry can be really indulgent too. But so that I guess is my like compact answer. Then is just, how may I serve? And then, put it out there.
What's your hope for when we come to another side of this? How do you hope we are changed for the better?
I really hope that everybody in whatever industry you're in is having some serious thought about the spiritual reason this is happening, and were we behaving with integrity? Were we making choices with integrity? Were we doing shows with integrity? Were we going to the office with integrity? What were we doing? Were we making money? Of how may I serve as what can I get? I really hope that this has been an awakening on a lot of levels in that way, so that when we come back, that we're getting an opportunity to reset, and may we make choices through integrity again.
That's beautiful. So just because you said the word awakening,
yeah,
and then I have to actually mind the time. Can you talk a little bit? You have a solo piece that came from Inspirations? Is that the book?
Yeah, Wayne Dyer wrote a book called Inspirations. And this also, because we talked about Paris, but I've had so many I mean, one right after the other shows that this was happening. And then I was involved with Rebecca, the major scandal that happened on Broadway.
Oh, golly.
I was supposed to star in Rebecca on Broadway. The marquee was up, and the day before we started rehearsal, no, that's not going to happen. Marquee was up a couple times. There's so many shows that this has happened with. And so right when that occurred was when I was asked to do my very first solo show, and I was terrified. I was terrified to be myself, and like, what are people going to want to hear? And like, also coming from this place of like, I can't seem to get a show to happen. Everything gets canceled before even going in rehearsal. And I read Wayne Dyer's book, Inspiration, and I was like, oh my God, this is the stuff when you learn. I am not what I do, I am not what I have, and I'm not what other people think of me. And I think we're in a collective lesson, like classroom right now, of you're not what you do. Because if you are what you do, then when you don't do, who are you?
Yeah.
And so I had an awakening of like, oh, I can be inspired. What am I inspired? Who am I without my jobs? And so I based it off of a bunch of different things I'm inspired by. One was my father, one is my grandparents, one is nature. That's a big one for me because I'm originally from Denver, Colorado. So I grew up in barefoot in the grass everywhere. And it's yeah, that's how it started. So now when I concert, it's different versions of awakening. Awakening is like the very beginning of that. But yeah, that's what it's based off of.
So I kind of feel like I should ask everyone in the call to like leave their copay with you, because I feel like this was about this practice that we're all in, but it was about something much, much larger.
Of course.
And you're very kind to give us your time. And I just have to say, I love you madly.
I love you too.
And I love everything you bring to every room, even virtual ones that you walk into.
Mm.
So thank you.
Thank
And
you. Thank you for this platform and for doing this for all the people and for just everything that Alliance stands for. And this is just like, this is really, really special.
Thanks, Ciara.
Thanks
all for joining us.
Bye, you guys.
Bye, everybody.